welcome to another episode of For the Love of Marketing. Today's episode is very special because we have a guest. We are delighted to welcome Oliver Duffy Lee, founder of Authority Agency. Simon and Oliver will talk about authority and how to grow a B2B business through social media. Welcome, Oliver. Welcome, Simon.
Hi, Oliver. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm good. Thanks, Nam. And hey, Simon. Nice to speak to you, man.
Yeah, and you. Yeah, great to have you on. I follow a lot of your stuff on LinkedIn. The content's really valuable, and I thought it'd be great to get on the podcast today and have a bit of a chat and see if I can get inside that brain of yours and see what's in there.
Some scary stuff in there, dude. I don't know how deep you want to go.
Yeah, okay. Let's keep it high level then. Let's keep it up the top there. So, I mean, one of the reasons that I like what you write about on LinkedIn, especially, is that you talk a lot about authority. Now, for me, authority is really critical at the moment, right? It's essential in building a profile as an individual, in building a profile as a business. It has an impact on SEO, which is moving much more towards authority-based metrics as well. So it's becoming this real buzzword at the moment in marketing. But for me, the first question is, what is authority? I mean, what do you think it really means?
It's a really good question, and it's probably something that I should question to myself more often. But I mean, it's really, really simple. So I just give you a bit of context. I grew up in the agency world, started my career in the agency world, and I was lucky enough to work for an agency that works with big brands like Volvo, Porsche, and other big brands like this. And because that was my frame of reference, I thought that it was quite easy to work with big brands like that. Like it was something you did. If you had a good service and you had a good team, you could work with brands like that. It was only since like leaving that and getting experience in other agencies, I realized the agency I worked with at the start had a really good brand, basically. And in B2B marketing, B2B service-based marketing, really that means authority, right? So what that means is that it's basically, I think you can basically copy the same word. Authority in B2B means brand, I would say. And it's just a more important and more descriptive word, because when you talk about B2B, a great way to build a brand is to show that you know your stuff, show that you're an expert in something, show that you can get good results, show that you can be trusted. And a great way to summarize a brand which gives all of that to your business is authority, right? Because authorities generally are trusted in this world. I think another word, if you want to use it, is expert, but frankly, that word has a bit of a bad rap these days for whatever reason. So that's kind of how I would frame it. Really, it's B2B brand which shows that you know your stuff and you're very good at what you do. Yeah,
I mean, that's an interesting point around expert, right? I mean, we all know, and obviously being in the UK, we know that a lot of the Brexit vote happened because people just, there's a big campaign against experts, right? Why should I trust these so-called experts and all of that sort of nonsense? And under Trump in the US, there was a lot of pushback on experts and things as well, right? So it's an interesting area. I think it's a great point that authority and brand are sort of interchangeable in some respects. But I guess that brings me to, in my mind, a question around how you build that authority then. So as an established brand, the authority comes along with it, right? So if you're a Nike or a McDonald's or whatever, right, people was, okay, we know who you are, you've got a certain level of authority, you're an expert in your space, we can trust you. But let's say you're a new company, you're fairly young. How do you go about building authority or brand when you're going to compete against people who are already so well established in that space?
Yeah, and this is why authority is so important. So the reason why we need to drive for authority is because it's a great differentiator. In B2B, I mean, this, right? So, but in B2B marketing, the big problem is that people all say the same things and they all deliver the same services. It doesn't matter whether you're a law firm, an accounting firm, an agency, whatever. If you talk about your services, you have no difference from every one of your competitors. Okay, so that's the first thing, is we're searching for differentiation here. When you want to decide you want to be an authority, you have to know what you want to be an authority in. And here is the golden rule of brand building in the B2B space: is the smaller and narrower your field of expertise, the better. And there's so many reasons why. One is because if you want to be an authority at something, you have to be good at it, right? You have to actually know your stuff. And if you try and be an expert in the marketing industry, for example, as an agency, if you're saying we're in the marketing industry, that's massive. But if you say we're an expert in gym marketing or restaurant marketing, or my agency, for example, is healthcare or OTC marketing, it's so much easier to own that space. Also, you're going to have less competition as well, right? Like, so for example, if I take the example of my agency, we do e-commerce. We help brands grow online. When we were an e-commerce agency, we had to compete with thousands of other agencies. As soon as we became an OTC pharma e-commerce agency, we chopped away at like 99.9% of our competition, and we gave ourselves a really sharp area of focus in which to become an expert in or become an authority in. So in terms of how, the first step is really, really strong specialization and differentiation. I mean, what's your view on being specialist over a generalist in this area as well, Simon?
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I think it's really important to have a niche, right? You can't be a specialist in everything. I think there are, certainly from a marketing agency side, there are areas where you would position yourself in a niche. You might still take some business from other niches if it fits into your model, of course, right? But something attractive comes along, you're worth 10 billion. You're not going to say sorry, but you're outside my niche, right? but I agree with you, right? I think that real core focus, and it's what marketing's all about, right? With the right message to the right person at the right time, you want to be speaking the relevant piece and having proof points that show that you are the expert in that specific area.
Exactly.
The only way you can really build authority, you can't say I'm an expert in 100 different things, because you can't be an expert in 100 different things. So I agree with you completely. Yeah,
it's going to be surface level. And so once you have that area of specialism, it's really, this is how simple marketing is. You have to show people that you're a specialist and you're an expert. And so we have every B2B company right now has a really easy opportunity, which I would implore you to take advantage of, which is to be posting ridiculously high amounts of content that show that you know what you're doing. So if you're a B2B business owner and you're sitting there thinking, I just haven't got enough business, don't know where my leads are coming from, and you're not posting personally 3 times a week at least, you have nothing to complain about. That you just don't. It's a massive opportunity right now. Platforms like LinkedIn, even it doesn't have to be LinkedIn. LinkedIn's amazing for B2B, right? But it doesn't have to be. If you're trying to target younger businesses, TikTok could be good. But the organic reach you get on these platforms, which is the space where you can say, I want to speak to this type of person, and I want to prove to them that I can solve this problem that I know they have. Just put out content about it every day. Really, really easy. Especially if you're an expert, it should come easily to you. That's how you do it. I mean, there's tons of other strategies afterwards, but as a baseline, understanding who you're talking to, understanding what problems they have, how you're going to solve them, and put loads of content out, which proves that to be the case.
So, that's a great point. I think, content marketing is hugely important. It's kind of another buzzword, to be honest with you, these days, right? But it's a really central, but for me, when I think about building marketing strategies, as we do for a lot of our clients around the world, is often the content strategies at the center of it, because it's difficult to look at anything else in terms of how you build your brand and your SEO and your social media and your retention strategy and everything else without thinking about how content sits at the core of that. But what sort of content, if you're going to be putting out content every day, what sort of content is the right content to build authority and branding, do you think?
So that's a really interesting question. We focus very heavily on social. And so when it comes to social, I think you want to look at fairly short form, right? So we look at 3 different types of content when it comes to personal social. One would be like value-based content. I would say this, if you're looking at posting on LinkedIn, for example, or any social, there's 3 buckets of content you want to create. You want to create value, you want to create viral content, you want to create conversion content. Now, 9 times out of 10, so value content is that stuff which positions you as an expert. It's like that how-to stuff, or 3 ways you can maximize this, or that really simple, that classic content marketing stuff. Everyone's very comfortable in that area, right? Very, very comfortable in that value-based area, but it's only one of 3. The viral area, I would say you can call it more viral, or you can call it engagement content. That is stuff which is personal. It's about you. personally, I hate this type of content. I hate it. But the team that I work with to manage my brand online, they tell me that it's essential, and I can tell you from doing it, it is, right? Now, the reason you want to do that stuff, that sort of personal content, is two reasons. One is it gets better engagement. So when you get better engagement with a couple of posts, your next post, which are the value stuff, are going to get more reach. Okay, so you're working the algorithm. But the other thing is it positions you as someone who's approachable, as a human being. Now, one of the things that we do in our life, me and my partner, who's also my partner in business as well, we travel, right? We travel, we're completely remote, we travel. Now, a big part of me and my personal brand is to talk about that, because it gives people insight as to how we live. It also gives them an aspirational idea of what's possible, right? Remote business is possible. You've got to do that stuff. Even if you don't want to talk about yourself, you kind of have to, okay? And the third type of content, which no one does, which some people do and they do it really badly, is what we call conversion content. So at any moment in your network, there's going to be a group of people in your funnel, in your network, which at some point become ready to sort of book a meeting with you or buy. Now, when they do, they don't knock on your door and say, oh, hey, I'm ready to buy now, by the way. Like I've been in your network for like 2 years, but now I'm ready to buy. They don't do that. So you have to give them an opportunity to come and book with you, right? And that's what this conversion content is. So it's either like a case study with if you're having these problems, book a call with me. Maybe it's an invite to an event, which you offer them to book a call afterwards. You have to have that conversion content in there, because otherwise you'll just have lots of fans and no clients. So it's a nice mix. Value, I'm imagining everyone that's listening to this, if you are posting regularly, you probably are very comfortable in the value area. You need to get comfortable in the engagement, the personal, the viral area, and you need to deploy conversion content when you can as well. That's basically on social, that's our content strategy.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, I think that's really helpful advice, Oliver. And it's all stuff that we do ourselves as well. And I have to be honest, I'm the same as that point you mentioned there, is that I don't do enough about myself, the personal side, and I know it, right? I mean, we all know it, and I get lectured about it by my team all the time. But I'm not as vain as I should be on social media. So I think, for me, there's likewise, I like to travel, and I have lots of interesting things that I do, and I don't talk about any of them. And I often tell people when we're developing social strategies for them, very similar messages to what you've just said there, and about how social media is really about being human is an important point to me.
Exactly.
Right? People relate to people, they don't relate to logos, right? So I think showing that humanity coming through, and being a real person who's having real experiences, and some of those are bad and some of those are good.
Exactly.
And, that's really important, and people relate to that. And I'm terrible at it. I need to get a lot better at that. So
it's not comfortable. Like, and it's just true. And the other thing about it is you can't do it. You've got to do it authentically. So and you've got to say stuff which you don't really want to say out online, but it makes you more approachable. It really helps.
Yeah, no, it's great. It's great advice. So do you think within that mix on LinkedIn or any other sort of social platform, do you think that advertising has to play a part, or do you think people can build their authority purely organically?
Yeah, so depends on where you are. If you're a startup, if you're doing under, let's just put a line in the sand at 20K a month revenue. I'm not talking about profit, I'm talking about revenue. I would say advertising probably isn't needed. But when you get to that point, I think it is. One of the reasons B2B businesses fall down when it comes to their marketing is they don't have enough top of funnel activity. And for me, like really, really simply looking at what the top of funnel means, it just means people getting to know you. Okay. And so I think paid advertising is an amazing top of funnel activity at scale. Okay. So, that means finding people, putting stuff out there like value-based content or thought leadership or lead magnets out there with paid behind it, getting emails in and getting them into your ecosystem. I think that's great. I don't love bottom of funnel paid activity for B2B. And the reason why, when I say bottom of funnel, I mean people who with high intent who are ready to purchase. The reason why is because these people generally are shopping. And our philosophy when it comes to sales, not marketing, but sales, is we only want to sell to people who aren't shopping. So people who are feeling a problem, but are not yet solution aware. They're problem aware, they're not yet solution aware. When they're solution aware, they start shopping. In the agency world, this is a real problem, right? Because agency pricing and profitability and profit margin in the agency world is tough. It's hard to make good profit margins running an agency. It just is very labor intensive, people intensive. And so if you come across a client who's talking to 3 other agencies, they could be half as good as you, but you will still be commoditized to their price. So that is to say that I think paid is amazing for top of funnel, bringing people into your network, getting people into your email list so you can nurture them with your newsletter, getting people into your LinkedIn profile. Cold outreach, I think, is an amazing top of funnel activity as well, right? It's not about, don't look at cold outreach like you're going to make loads of sales. It's top of funnel, right? You're going to get people into your network to like your stuff, but you won't get them in to buy it, to book a call with you or buy. So yeah, I love paid. We use paid for authority agency, and we use it just to funnel people into our worlds. So we have my LinkedIn profile, Instagram profile, email list, and also Facebook group, all the areas where we just want to drive people through from our paid so that we can talk to them in a more relaxed environment, basically. Does that make sense? Like, how do you view paid?
It's similar things. I think, for me, a lot of what I do is trying to bring value and help the marketing community, right? Having spent 25 years on the other side of the desk as a CMO, head of marketing, various different roles at the big companies, the big global ones, and the tiny little startups. Yeah. I'm aware of a lot of the struggles that marketers have, and I want to help people solve those problems. That's the reason I wrote the book in the first place, is to help various different audiences solve their problems. So where we do paid social, it's primarily around giving some kind of value-based content, so sort of lead magnet style. Here's a guide, here's something helpful, so we're solving a problem for you, and if we can then discuss an ongoing relationship or something off the back of that, great. But even if we can't, at least I've provided you some value, and I've positioned myself as someone you can go to for value in the future. So that's a lot of what we do. We don't use, as you say, social media advertising much for bottom of the funnel conversion. I think there are better places for that, but it can work extremely well depending on your audience. And we certainly run a number of social campaigns for some of our clients where it is sales focused, and it works extremely well. But it does depend enormously on who you are and what you're doing.
Definitely, and I think that conversion. If you're talking like search advertising as well, for bottom of funnel search, people who are searching for your service, that's all good. My view with marketing is, how can I make the sales as easy as possible? And this is why authority is our way of looking at things, because we jump on, we have a lot of sales calls, right? Like our marketing works, we have a lot of sales calls. And now we have sales calls with people who are ready to buy, and that feels good. It makes my life easier and just more pleasant. But like throughout the last few years, we've had really effective, on the surface, marketing, tons of sales calls, and like a 15% conversion rate, which makes you feel really bad. But that's just because we're sending people who don't know us to our sales team, who it doesn't matter if people don't know you, they don't trust you, it's very hard to sell to them anyway. So that's kind of why we love the authority, because we get to speak to people who are ready to buy from us. They know us already, and it makes that sales conversation so easy.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. So I've got one more question for you, Oliver.
Awesome.
I think I had a whole list of things I wanted to ask you, and you've answered so many of them within other questions. So it's a really valuable conversation. I think that the last thing I wanted to ask you is that all of that advice is great, right? I think there's so much value for anyone listening to take away from what you said there. However, let's assume that they all take that advice away and they all start doing it. Right now, everyone's doing the same thing. Right. So how do you stand out in a busy environment where everyone's following that advice?
That's a really, really good question. I'd love to know your thoughts on this as well. But my main answer to that is, there's two things, right? There's two things which hopefully can never be replicated. Firstly is you as a person. And this is why we advocate personal branding so much, and this is why it's good you have to post about yourself. It's why video content can work so well, because even if, so for example, we're an agency consultancy, we consult agencies. Are we the only ones out there? Absolutely not. It's a very, very tough market, right? It's saturated as hell. But I dare say there's no one like me. There's a lot of people who are better than me, by the way, but there's no one like me, right? And so it turns out most of our coaching program is full of people who I feel like they're my best mates because we get on so well, because we click, right? So people are buying from me, right? So the first thing is be yourself and put yourself out there, because no one can replicate that. The second thing is, and this is so important, is get your own intellectual property. Like actually get your process and your thinking out of your head, put it into some nice looking models which make sense and you can explain, and own that. Put a little TM at the end of it because you can, and own that stuff and talk about that, because intellectual property in the coaching world, everyone does it. Even if they don't know anything, they do it. In the agency world, in the B2B world, no one does it. And it just takes a couple of models, a couple of bits of IP just to put out there, own it, put your brand name on it. And that is an amazing way to differentiate yourself. So yeah, two things: intellectual property and personality. Here's one. So I have to say this when it comes to IP, because I've told people about IP in the past and they've just ripped off other people's IP. IP is yours and it's unique to you. You have to come up with it yourself. You can't just steal other people's IP. So I'm very hot on that. But yeah, that's what I would say. That's my answer. What about you, man? What do you think?
Yeah, look, I think that's great. I mean, I think being unique and human, like I said earlier, is important. I think that's the way you can get your voice to stand out. I mean, I have a number of models that I created in the book. For example, that now they get search volume on Google when they didn't exist before I wrote the book, of course. So there are little concepts there that are gradually being sort of embedded into sort of marketing lingo for the generations, the unfortunate generations that are growing up with my book as their first touch point on marketing. I think that's right. I think having you need to find a way to stand out. So there's a lot of the same stories, a lot of the same messages, and you need to find your twist on that and your voice within that space. You don't just assume. And we actually did a podcast very recently on originality within content. And that's one of the key points for me, is don't just take something and copy and paste it because you see it getting good engagement. You think about, okay, you can look at that, you can be inspired by it, and you can try and find your angle on that, your voice in that, your specific unique approach to it, but don't just copy and paste it and send it out. And I've had a lot of rants Nam is aware of internally about a specific piece that's going around social media at the moment, which is really, really annoying me. Which I won't reference right now, but there's a specific piece which is blatantly wrong in its messaging, and yet it's being shared by so many so-called marketing experts everywhere and getting in front of tens of thousands of people, which is really frustrating me. So that stuff annoys me. So I think, if there's a piece that is out there, don't just copy and paste it and change the background color to your brand color. Think about what your voice is and what you can add to that, and how you can be different and add real value to your audience. I think that for me is the key point.
Yeah, I love that. It must, I mean, you must see it much more than me. I also see it like basically people, thinking that sounds interesting, I'm just going to say it and make it look like it's mine. It's not cool, and it doesn't make you look good when you get found out either.
Yeah, and you do get found out as well. And I think that's one of the points I made on that last podcast, is it's a bit naive, right, to think that if I say that and I put it out, it'll get in front of people and they'll all think I'm amazing. Well, those people probably have seen it somewhere else, because they're the same audience for it on any channel, right? So wherever they saw it first is the person they're going to think created it first, which might be you, but it also might be 25 other people who posted it, right?
Exactly.
I can forgive someone young at the beginning of their career making that sort of mistake, but someone positioned themselves as an expert with 15 years, it's like, just don't do it. You look like an idiot, to be honest. That's my view. Great. Oliver, look, it's been fantastic conversation.
Awesome.
I've really enjoyed it. I think we're very lined up on some of these points, and I think there's some fantastic insights from you there. So I think that there's a lot of individuals and businesses that can benefit from your knowledge. So look, thank you so much for being part of our podcast. Hopefully we can welcome you back at some point. But
I'd love to.
Either way, you and I need to keep talking, definitely.
Definitely. No, thank you so much. Thank you, Simon. Thank you, Nam. Absolute pleasure to be here.
Brilliant. Lovely. I'll hand back over to you now.
Yeah, the conversation was very insightful, especially the part where the value conversion and viral model. I think I'm going to steal it, and everybody should steal it. And then I'm going to go and get some of my process trademark. But yeah, thank you for your time, Oliver. And I think it was a great conversation. And everybody should follow Oliver on LinkedIn to know how to build authority with your agency. And thank you so much. You can subscribe us on YouTube, and for more marketing tips and advice, follow our podcast on Spotify and Apple. Thank you so much. See you all.